tech. It's so much fun. As I've explained to many of you before, it's not always easy being a virtual rabbi. It's not something I was trained to do. So sorry for those of you that were very punctual, Amy McGinnis, namely, but we are now online and should be live streaming for you for Shabbat services tonight. So tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. Raise your hand if you're tired of talking or hearing about COVID-19. So tonight, I've gotten several different requests from folks about doing a little bit of a Shabbat Tefillah 101, explaining a little bit about our prayers, our prayer books, and just what to expect in a synagogue. I know that many of you are tuning in that don't normally come to services and in person. And we are so happy that you're finding this different medium. And hopefully tonight gives you a little bit more confidence to come and join us when we're allowed to be all together again and pray in our space. So instead of having a musician tonight and singing our way through the service, I'm going to be introducing all of the different elements that are a part of our evening tefillah. And hopefully we can use this in the very near future for our B'nai Mitzvah students to familiarize them with some of the prayers. So let's get going. So our Hine Matov, it's a song of gathering. It's something that we sing for services, but really any time that we're blessed with the ability to sit together and to dwell together. So there's lots of different tunes. Every single song in Jewish liturgy has like 100 different tunes. There is no standard set tune. There's no traditional tune. There's just what you're familiar with and what you're not. And this year we've had to play around a lot with music because some people that we've brought in as musicians are familiar with some tunes and some are familiar with others, and some are capable of singing some and some are capable of singing others. So I know that some people have favorites, but here is a very typical tune for Hine Matov. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. On a Friday night, we usually like to start with what we call a Kabbalat Shabbat, a receiving of Shabbat. And all of the prayers that we say before we get into the real meat of the service, which is our Ma'ariv service in the evenings, are psalms and different prayers talking about different ways to sort of immerse ourselves in a spirit of Shabbat. So one of them, Psalm 96, talks about singing a new song. On Shabbat, we're told that we get a second soul. And that second soul is kind of made new each and every week. And so we get to sing a new song with that soul when we experience Shabbat. So the first time I ever heard this particular melody, which is the Friday night nusach, the sort of traditional way that prayers are chanted, I heard it at B'nai Jeshurun in New York City, which if you ever have a chance to go visit B'nai Jeshurun in New York, you really should. But this melody, uh, whenever I hear it, it takes me back to those Friday evenings that I would spend with friends in New York, welcoming Shabbat after a long week. So the nusach goes like this: Shiru Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Adonai, Baruch Hu Shemo, Masru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato. And then typically I transition into singing. Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Hu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato, Sapru Vagoyim, Kevodo Bechol Ha'amim Niflotav, Ki Gadol Adonai U'olam Me'od Norahu Al Kol Elohim Yai 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 Nai 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 Yan Nai 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 Yan Nai 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 Yan Nai 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 Yan Nai 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 Nai. Within the Jewish tradition, it is typical to do what we call nigunim, which are wordless melodies. So that 9-9 that I did at the very end, and you'll hear inserted throughout different parts of our songs and our liturgy, is a way of the soul expressing praise without needing to know the words. So I really encourage, anytime you're at the synagogue, if you don't know the words or you don't feel comfortable trying to wrap your tongue around some of the difficult Hebrew, it is always 100% acceptable to just sing out the melody. Sing out the melody, yadidai, yayolelai, nananai, and join in whatever way that you can. Our Lachadodi is a prayer welcoming in a very special guest. When we say that it's the Shabbat bride, I like to call it the Shabbat beloved, because not all of us marry brides. I certainly didn't. And I know that there are other people in different types of relationships. And so I like to think that this is a little bit more all-encompassing, that we are welcoming this divine presence that we are wedding ourselves to. But this is included in our Kabbalat Shabbat because we are welcoming in a presence to share Shabbat with us. We are welcoming in the Shekhinah, the divine, loving Spirit of God. And this, partnered with our Shalom Aleichem, which we'll sing in just a few minutes, is really surrounding us. I want you to sort of imagine yourself being surrounded by loving guests. So this first one, Lachadodi, is about welcoming in our Shabbat beloved, which is God. And just like at a real wedding, at the very last line, we stand and receive that presence. So lots and lots of tunes for this. But one of my favorites goes, La 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 Lachadodi, la 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 likrat kala, la 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 b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekabela, shamor ve'zachor, medibur echad, Hishmihanu El Hamiuchad Adonai Echad Ushemo Echad L'Shemo Tiferet Velitila Lai 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 Yala La La Lai L'Chadudi Yala La La Lai L'Krat Kala La 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 Lai B'nei Shabbat B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Likrat Shabbat Lechu v'nilcha Ki mikor habracha Merosh Mekedem Nesucha Sof Ma'aseh B'machshava Techila Yalalai Yalalai L'chadodi Yalalai L'krat Kala Yalalai B'nei Shabbat B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Hitoreri Kiva Orech Kumi Uri Shir Dameri Kavod Adonai Alai Nigla Yalalai Yalalai L'chadudi Lalalai L'krat Kala Yalalai B'nei Shabbat B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. And so on our final verse, there are actually 9, but we only do 4 of them. But our final verse, we turn towards our front door, any door that we can receive somebody through. And we sing the words, Boi v'shalom, come in peace. And as we're singing the very last bit, Boi chala, come my bride, or come my beloved, we do a little bow, bend and bow, so that this divine sovereign presence of God feels that we're offering enough kavod, enough honor as we receive this Shabbat beloved. So Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha u'tola, toch emunei am segula, Boi chala, Boi chala, Yalalai, Yalalai L'chadodi, Yalalai L'krat Kala, Yalalai B'nei Shabbat, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. And as promised, we have our Shalom Aleichem. This will be the last piece that we include in our Kabbalat Shabbat. If you've ever been to a more traditional community, Kabbalat Shabbat is much, much longer and is really the bulk of the service. But for us, we do it as a little bit of a warm-up or a taster. Imagine Kabbalat Shabbat like slowly slipping in to a warm bath or a cool pool. You wouldn't want to just dive right in head first because it's a little shocking. Kabbalat Shabbat is our way of acclimating ourselves to this profound experience of prayer. And so we sort of slip into it slowly before we get to the real meat of the service so that we can really put ourselves in the right mindset. So again, part of this is surrounding ourselves with the divine presence, surrounding ourselves with guests that are going to join us in this prayer. So tonight, especially when many of us are davening at home, some of us alone, we're surrounding ourselves with these ethereal guests of the Shekhinah and our Malachim, our angels. So Shalom Aleichem is inviting in the angels. So this is a very traditional tune for Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Marchuni l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Zeichem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. So now we're transitioning from our Kabbalat Shabbat, our sort of warm up, into our Ma'ariv service. And one of the things that separates our work week from our Shabbat is the lighting of candles. So even though it's a little early because the sun is still out and shining, we're gonna do our candle lighting. And then we're going to do our Kiddush, which is our blessing over our wine, and our Motzi, our blessing over bread, so that those of you who are sitting down and watching this over dinner can enjoy your meal if you haven't already started. So the candle blessing is a simple prayer with our regular blessing formula. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. That is how many of our blessings starts. It says, "Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign King of the universe, who has commanded us with, or who has sanctified us, kidshanu, sanctified us with mitzvot, commandments, and has commanded us lehadlik ner shel Shabbat, in the lighting of our Shabbat candles." So many of our blessings start that way. Go ahead and sing along with me as I do our lighting. So there are always 2 Shabbat candles. Some families like to include 2 candles for every family member, but there are always no less than 2, because we're supposed to shamor vezachor et hashabbat. So we're supposed to guard and to keep the Sabbath day holy. And so we always have 2. When we do Havdalah, the separation between Shabbat and the rest of the week on a Saturday night, it has to be a candle with at least 3 wicks. And the purpose for that is that we should come out of the Sabbath, come out of Shabbat with even more light than we went into it with. A really beautiful idea of these 25 hours of rest, really regenerating us and allowing us to bring more light into the world after a day of rest. So it's traditional for women to do candle lighting. And it used to be that only a man would light Shabbat candles if there was no woman in the household to light. But obviously, we're much more egalitarian nowadays. So anybody in the household who is commanded to light candles, any Jew commanded to light candles in the household above the age of 13 should do so. And as we light, we pretend that it's dark outside, because we're not supposed to light a fire on the Sabbath. So we have to light them just a little bit before Shabbat has started. It's supposed to be 18 minutes before. But we cover our eyes in order to pretend that it's dark out, that the Sabbath has already started. And then we open our eyes and we see the beauty of our Shabbat candles, and Shabbat has begun. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav metzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. And because we are celebrating the holiest holiday in the Jewish calendar, which is Shabbat, which happens every week, one of those elements of celebration is always, in the Jewish tradition, wine. And so we say a special blessing over our wine when we welcome in Shabbat. My husband seems to think that there are two different blessings, the short one and the long one. And I've told him there is really no short one when it's Shabbat, because you're blessing the wine and you're blessing the day together. So when it's Shabbat, you got to do the whole shebang. But it starts out with the short one, which ends in Borei Pri Hagafen. If it wasn't Shabbat, you would say over wine. But since it's Shabbat, we do the long one. And it goes like this. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho be'ava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Hashabbat. L'chaim. So with every blessing, when you say the actual words of the prayer, you don't say Amen at the end, because you've just said it. And Amen is like saying, yeah, whatever she said. So you only say Amen when you don't say the blessing yourself. So if all of you were listening to me and didn't do the blessing, you would say Amen at the end and then drink. But if you actually do the blessing, no Amen. I don't have challah tonight for my motzi, but you can really say the motzi, thanking God for bringing bread from the earth over any bread product. So thanks to Adele Bolson, I'm going to do the motzi over goldfish crackers tonight, because this is the only bread product we have in the house that is not currently moldy. I'm sure you all are excited to one day do Shabbat dinner at my house. So whatever bread product you have, take 2 of it, because we were told in the Torah that we received a double portion of manna on Shabbat, so that nobody would have to go out and collect additional food. And manna was bread from heaven, or something akin to bread from heaven, some sort of sustenance. And so we received a double portion. So when you see people doing hamotzi on a Friday night, they usually have 2 loaves of challah to represent that double portion. So I have 2 goldfish crackers, and the blessing goes like this: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lachem min haaretz, b'te'avon. B'te'avon just means like enjoy your meal. Some people would say amen, but if you've said the blessing, you don't have to say amen. All right. Wash those goldfish crackers down. So now we move into sort of the call and response. I think that of this sort of like the call to prayer, similar in the Muslim community, and the idea that we start off by saying Baruch et Adonai Habarach, and the whole congregation responds with Baruch Adonai Habarach le'olam va'ed. And since it is this call and response, part of the choreography of this part of the service is we turn towards the ark, which the ark is facing east. In my house, we don't have an ark. I know that's shocking, but east facing is this direction. So I usually turn towards the window when I'm davening at home. And when I'm saying Baruch et Adonai Habarach, I bend at the knees and bow. And then you, in response, would say Baruch Adonai Habarach le'olam va'ed. And that's when you bend and bow. You don't have to do it twice. So if you're ever at shul with us and you see Michaela or Tracy or Josh or one of our musicians sing Baruch et Adonai Habarach, often I don't bow, because I'm bowing with you, the congregation, in response to that prayer. So this is one of the standing ones. And my new line is going to be, if you're able and you're stable, please rise. And I'm just going to do a simple version of the Baruch. Nine, 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 nine. 9999999. Baruch hu atah Adonai hamevorach. And then you would respond, Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. 999999999999999. And now after that's done, some congregations would continue standing all the way through until they get to the Shema and then sit right before the Ve'ahavta. But I usually sit after the Baruch Hu because it's a long time to be standing. And when we get to the Shema, I'll explain why you do not have to stand for the Shema. So this is a very traditional prayer, our Mariv Aravim. We're going to just read it through in the Hebrew. I'm going to go through nice and slow. But before we do that, I wanted to give just a little bit of a kind of a primer for other things that you encounter in our synagogue outside of just the prayers. So if you had a prayer book in your hands, it would obviously open backwards because we read Hebrew from right to left instead of left to right. This usually throws off many new visitors. But some of the ritual wear, people ask me all the time, like, Rabbi, what is this thing you're wearing? It's got tzitzit, it's got fringes on the end of it, but we're not actually required to wear tzitzit or a talit at night. This is what many Reform rabbis would wear for an evening service. We call it an atara. It's more of a neckband with the tzitzit on the bottom of them. We don't have to wear, as Jews, tzitzit at night because you're supposed to be able to see them and they're supposed to remind you of the mitzvot. And typically, in ancient times, it would be too dark to see your tzitzit. So instead, it was reserved for the mornings only. The reason that many Reform rabbis will wear an atara, sort of a modified, smaller talit at night, is just to differentiate themselves as being the rabbi. Instead of, oh, who's that schmuck in the back? Oh, that's my rabbi. So that's one thing that you'll see many Reform rabbis wearing. Kippot are actually, there's nothing about kippot as traditional wear in the Torah. This is something that came about in later times, just sort of denoting that you're Jewish, that you have respect for, sort of a higher authority. But the Reform movement, since it wasn't considered part of the Torah, and it wasn't necessarily a commandment to wear a kippah, the Reform movement initially didn't have them and actually didn't even allow them from some of their congregants. The very first pulpit that I served in Cincinnati, Ohio, was more of what we call classical reform. And so that I, as an assistant rabbi, was actually not permitted to wear a kippah. The congregants could if they wanted to, but I was not allowed to. But it has become much more common within the Reform movement to wear kippot. So back to our prayer book. This prayer, the Ma'ariv Aravim, it's only said at night because it talks about the movement of the celestial bodies, of the sun or the moon and the stars specifically, but the idea that everything is cyclical, everything acts in circles and is somewhat reliable. And especially in a very unreliable time right now where we feel like everything is out of control. It's such a grounding, centering prayer to think of there being some order and sense to the universe. So I'm going to read through this nice and slow. And if you know any Hebrew and we want to try to pick out different words as I'm reading through the Hebrew, fantastic. But otherwise, just listen to the music of the language. The more you hear Hebrew, the easier it is for you to start using it in the synagogue and elsewhere, because there's a music to the ear that language really requires before you can start speaking. So, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, בחוכמה פותח שערים, ובתבונה משנה עיתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, El Chai v'Kayam, Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. This next prayer are actually words of interpretation. They're not the actual words for our prayer of Ahavat Olam, but they speak to the way in which God loves God's people Israel by giving us Torah and our celebrations and everything that we as Jews hold dear. Now, it's important. I always tell our kids that the Ahava Rabbah, or Ahavat Olam in the evening, Ahava Rabbah in the morning, the Shema and the Ve'ahavta form what I call a love sandwich. The Ahavat Olam and the Ve'ahavta are like the bread, and the Shema is the meat. Or if you're going on the vegetarian diet with me right now, it's your vegetable protein. And you start off talking about the ways in which God loves us, God's people. Then you move to the meat. Well, who is this God? God is Adonai, and Adonai is one. Those are the words of the Shema, sort of the central ethos of Judaism, this idea that there is only one God. And then the Ve'ahavta, which is part of the Shema, talks about the way in which we show love in return to God by following mitzvot. So there's an important concept as we're going through this, that you're not really supposed to have what's called a hafsek. You're not supposed to have a break between the different layers of your love sandwich. You're supposed to just go straight through. But I usually like to stop before the Shema, just to sort of center myself and center everybody else so that we can be truly prepared. But the Ahavat Olam, it ends with, I'll show you these words, Baruch Atah Adonai Ohev Amo Israel. And then you're supposed to go straight into the Shema. You always have to include these last few words. Even if you're doing an interpretive prayer, you include the last few. It's called the Chatima, and it's kind of like the final seal of the blessing. It's very much like saying Amen, where it's as if you said the whole thing. So we always say the Chatima, and then we go into our Shema. So I'm just going to go straight through into the Shema tonight, and then right into the Ve'ahavta. And if these are new prayers for you, please take the opportunity, read the translations. It's so important as we're praying and developing our sort of prayer muscles to figure out what it is we're saying. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to listen to the music, and we can be very moved spiritually, but it's always good to know what the words translate into. So this is the interpretation of the prayer. You were God and we were Israel, God alone and a lonely people long ago. You loved us a great love, and you taught us how to respond. Through recollections, celebrations, Torah, they are the light of our eyes, the uniqueness of our being. In the joy of them, you have drawn us close to you. In the truth of them, we have discovered you. We are together still. You respond to every people in your chosen way. With your love, you have chosen to respond to us. With our love, we offer you our praise. And then the Chatima, Baruch Atah Adonai Ohev Amo Israel. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'adecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinamtam levanecha ve'dibarta bam B'shivtacha b'beitecha ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. All right, so since we went through all of that without a hafsek, without a break, I'm going to go back through and just point out a few things. First of all, so we say our Hatima Baruch Atah Adonai Ohev Amo Israel always before we go into the Shema, because it's supposed to be like a, hey, clue in, we're about to do the Shema. We always do it right beforehand because the Shema is so important to us as Jews. It's the watchword of our faith, that it's really important that people have a little bit of notice that we're about to lead into something really important. We were just having a conversation in our pre-nag about sort of the chaos. Arnie Goldstein was talking about an Argentine congregation he and his wife Susan visited, and the kind of chaos that you see in more traditional synagogues, people coming in and out, children running around, people yakking during services. But that is pretty typical, or that at least was typical for most Jewish prayer services before the Reform movement really wanted to institute some decorum. And so having these things, these chatimot, that's the plural of chatima, having these little seals on the end of blessings, like the Ahavat Olam, clued everybody in, oh, we're about to do the Shema. I better pay attention. I better be focused. The Shema is so important that our rabbis tell us you can say it in any position, standing, sitting, on the back of a donkey. The most important thing is to be fully focused and not change position in the middle. So the Ve'ahavta, which I chanted, which with Torah trope, which comes straight from our Torah, words from our Torah, and is chanted in the same way we would chant Torah, it is a part of the Shema. It's considered a part. So actually saying the Shema standing and then sitting down for the Ve'ahavta doesn't really make sense. If you're going to stand for the Shema, then you should stand all the way through the Ve'ahavta. If you're ever in a more traditional synagogue, conservative synagogue, you'll realize that the Ve'ahavta is longer. It's longer because there's a second paragraph of that Shema that the Reform movement actually took out, because it talked about this sort of quid pro quo between God and the Jewish people. If you do this, if you're good, God will provide you rain in your season, rain in its seasons, and the crops will grow and you'll have abundance. And the early reformers had some real issues with that, because they know that sometimes bad things happen to good people. And so they dropped that second paragraph of the Shema. And so within the Reform movement, ours is a little bit shorter. So just a heads up, if you're ever in a conservative or a more traditional synagogue, there is more to it. Don't be thrown. And also, in order to fully focus on the words of the Shema, many people close their eyes, cover their eyes. They'll even make like a shin, or whichever way you want to make your shin, and cover their eyes to be fully focused and fully concentrating fully on the words of the Shema. The words Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad are in our Torah connected with the paragraph of Ve'ahavta. This Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed is not actually. And so many people traditionally will say it a little bit more quietly because it's not considered as important as the words of the Shema. It was added later. All right. Our Micha comes directly also from our Torah. And if you ever open a Torah scroll and look at the words of our Micha, our Song of the Sea, you can see that there's separation between the words. And it's supposed to, give you a sense of this really important thing that's going on, which is the Israelites being rescued by miracles from Egypt and the parting, the splitting of the Red Sea. But also, I think the separation of the words is kind of a little bit like waves. So there's a melody for this that I really like because it gives me a sense of sort of being at sea. So it goes like this. Micha mocha Bayalim Adonai Micha mocha Nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot Osef eleh Nora tehilot Osef eleh Malchutacha rahuvanacha Bokei yamifnei Moshe u'Miriam Zelianu ve'yameru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Our Hashkivenu is a prayer that we are supposed to say at bedtime, asking God to guard us and spread over us a sukkah of peace, very much like during the holiday of Sukkot, when we have these temporary dwellings that the Israelites had erected in their fields to celebrate the harvest, but also they hoped that that sukkah, that very temporary dwelling, would protect us, that God would protect us within it. So Michaela introduced me to a version that they do at Camp Kalsman, and let's see if I can remember it. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu Shomrenu lechayim Ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha Ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha. I close my eyes, my thoughts, they rise up to the sky. Another day gone by. So in my sleep, save my soul, you keep with each heartbeat. May my dreams be sweet. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Hamidenu, Shomrenu, Shomrenu Lechayim, Rosalenu, Sukkot, Sukkot Shlomecha, Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom. So now we've reached the true heart of our service, the tefillah. Tefillah means prayer, and we call this hatefillah, and we also call it the amidah. Amidah or amud means standing, so it's a prayer that we do standing. On the weekdays, there are 19 different prayers that are included in our amidah. On Shabbat, though, we only have 7. And the reason that there are so many fewer is that the 7 that we have on Shabbat and on weekdays only talk about gratitude and praise of God. The others that we include on the weekdays are actually about asking God for things. But we're supposed to envision we are in an ideal world. We are in Olam Haba, the world to come, and we have no needs. And we only give thanks. We only give praise. So this is another prayer that we stand up for, if you're stable and you're able. And we turn towards the east, typically towards our ark. And there's some bending and bowing that goes on during the Amidah. And I'm going to point it out. And we're going to have to sort of take a little break in between so that I can point out some of these. But this one, typically we do a couple of different tunes, but I'm just going to do a simple one. Adonai tzafatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. And now you might have seen me take 3 steps back and 3 steps forward, or at least saw me move back and forward. And the idea is that we take 3 steps back so that we can take 3 steps forward, as if we are approaching God, as if we are approaching a sovereign. And in that vein, when we start our prayers, this is Avot ve'imahot, giving thanks for our ancestors. When we start it, we bend and bow, just as if we have entered the chamber of a king or a queen, and we bend and bow at the very beginning after we've approached with our 3 steps. We bend and bow at the beginning and at the end of the Avot ve'imahot. But then we don't bend our bow throughout the rest of it. We only do it at the very, very end of all of our prayers of the Amidah. Because the idea is, if you were in the presence of a sovereign, you wouldn't just keep repeatedly bowing over and over and over again. So make note of where I bend and bow. It's really the beginning of this Avot ve'imahot prayer, our ancestors, and the end of the Avot ve'imahot, but nowhere else until we get to the very, very, very end. So this is how this one is chanted. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotinu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibur ve'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Ve'Konei Hakol Ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot U'Mevi Gula Livnei Bneihem Laman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Abraham Ve'Ezrat Sarah. So one of the things about the chant is there's all kinds of different nusach. There are different
ways that different communities chant. The way I learned was first at my hometown synagogue in Albuquerque, and then at which matched what was how it was being chanted at Hebrew Union College. At TBT, though, I listened to the way that people are chanting, and they're a little bit different on some of the words. Some of the chant is a little bit different. And I think actually that is thanks to, in large part, Cantor David being able to infuse a little bit more originality into the nusach, but also he had a conservative background, so I think there may be a little bit of mixing of the two. So if you're ever like, why, Rabbi Sidney, do you not chant it the way that it's supposed to be chanted? It's because there's really no one way to do it with all things in Judaism. All right, so this is Givorot. It's talking about God's might, God's strength. And there are two different pieces that we swap out depending on the time of the year. Right now, we're in the period between Pesach and Simchat Torah. So we're in the summer, and we ask for dew instead of rain. But I've included both of these. From in the winter, from Simchat Torah to Pesach, we ask for a little bit of a heavier rainfall. And this is pretty much the pattern of weather in Israel, is that during the summer, we ask for dew, and during the winter, we get rain. So I'm going to chant through this. The other thing is, you see that word meitim in brackets, both in the Hebrew and the transliteration. This was something that the Reform movement had originally dropped out of our prayer books, that word meitim, but put back into the newest prayer books that we use, Mishkan Tefillah, because that is actually the traditional wording. It's Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechaye Meitim. You are forever mighty, Adonai, you give life to the dead. And the idea, at least in traditional circles, was that when Olam Haba, when we're in Olam Haba, the world to come, the righteous will rise from their graves, and God will put flesh back onto bone, and we will live eternally. The righteous will. And the Reform movement has a little bit of a different theology on Olam Haba and what the world to come is, and Moshiach, the Messiah, all of those things. So instead they put Hakol, Mechaye Hakol, you give life to all. So we typically still use Hakol, but if you're in a conservative synagogue, you'll hear them use the word Meitim instead. So we chant it this way. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye hakol et harav lehoshia, marid hatal, so that's the other one. Mechalkel chaim v'chesed, mechaye hakol merachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofech holim, umatir asurim. Umekayem emunato lishendei afar, michamocha bal gevurot umido melach, melech memit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman hatala chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yahallelu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. And then there's a fourth blessing that I don't typically do out loud, but we really should. And this is giving thanks to God for the day of Shabbat. So many people are familiar with this particular tune, but it goes, Vishamru v'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz mishamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat lasot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. V'nei uvein, v'nei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael, et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam. So then our final three prayers that we typically say silently or pray silently together talk about God who sanctifies Shabbat, God whose presence returns to Zion, Eretz Israel, and also God who is all goodness and worthy of thanksgiving. And so I'm just going to give you a few moments now that we've gone through the kava, the set order of our prayers of the Amidah. I'm going to give you an opportunity to bring a little bit of kavanah, which is intentionality to your prayers tonight. And so I always leave some space for people to pray silently with whatever words are in their hearts, in addition to what is in the prayer book. So take a few moments tonight and think of things that you're particularly grateful for. They could be mundane. They could be like goldfish crackers. They could be something much more powerful, like the love of a spouse, or the joy brought to you by your children. So just take a few moments now and pray silently. So normally at this point, when I am davening, when I am praying the Amidah, we're still standing. I've got some back issues right now, so I was sitting, but we're still standing as we're praying silently. And what I typically do when I reach the very end of my my tefillah, my Amidah, is I take 3 steps as if I am exiting the presence of Adonai, and I bow one last time to the left, to the right, to the center, and back up. And that's usually the signal that I am done with my prayers for the Amidah for the evening. Those are the only points at which we do the bending and bowing during the Amidah, at the very beginning and at the very end. And we often like to end with a prayer for peace, because we never have enough of it and we always need it. So, Ose shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel. Yaseh shalom,
Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Israel. The one exception to not making bakashot, not making petitionary prayers or requests of God, is our Mishaberach, our prayer for healing. And this is an important and incredibly complicated prayer. For me as a rabbi, I find that often prayer isn't enough for somebody who is truly suffering, for somebody who's truly ailing. And so I like to look at the Mishaberach instead of some kind of magical cure-all. I like to see it as a mindfulness exercise, that praying for somebody will not make them better, but praying for somebody will make you more aware of the people who are in need of extra comfort and care, and spurn you to action. So we are partners with God in everything that we do. We can't expect God to heal somebody if we're not willing to do some things to promote that healing as well. So when we say the Mishaberach, if there's somebody on the list that you recognize and that you want to reach out to, please take that opportunity to do it. I've been making phone calls to folks who are sick or shut in or immunocompromised, and they really love just having a little bit of contact, especially right now. So take the opportunity, if you can, to reach out to folks and let them know that you're thinking about them. Tonight, we're going to pray together as a community for Valentina Darachovsky, Azrael Early, Rohan Early, Tara Landry, Myra Masig, Patricia Shapiro, Orly Sherman, Amy Thornton, Deborah Newman-Zis-Castengay, Lindsay Robinson, Sammy McCubbins, Amarin Hulsman, Laura Armstrong, John Levy, Diane Turner, Michael Sirkinpool, Jacqueline Tara Smith, Kalina Suzawa, Deborah Rose, Anna Olisker, Sid Rubin, Ken Slotnick, Martin Kornblue, Liliana Oxsmith, Elizabeth Knopf, Hans Wheel, and Sylvia Brown. If there's somebody else that you're thinking of tonight, keep them in your heart and your thoughts as we sing together our Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. So I'm not going to do a sermon tonight because we've done lots of me talking at you. But I just really want to encourage each one of you, even when our ban on gathering lifts and we're able to get back together, there's still an opportunity for you to pray. We live stream every week. But on top of that, we would love to see you in person. You don't have to come every week. But there's really so much about being in community together that I think we're all starting to realize how important it is. There is no way to replace human contact. We need to be together. And if you've ever been put off by being a part of a Jewish service because there are so many rules and steps and this foreign language, and when do I bend, when do I bow, when do I sit, when do I stand, don't worry about any of that. I want you to know that I, as somebody who really came to practice Judaism later in life, I've been there. I've been through all of it. And everything that I've learned to be able to be a rabbi, it was hard work, but I didn't always have it. And it's okay if you don't have it. There's no one right way to do Jewish. And we're all constantly learning. And there are even things that I, as a rabbi, make mistakes on, or have yet to be fully educated on. So please just come in and spend some time with us. And I think you'll truly find that Temple B'nai Torah is a comfortable place to do Jewish. So we're going to move now to the end of the service. This is something that throws some people who are really familiar with Jewish worship, and it is that we use an alternative Aleinu. There are 4 different Aleinus in our current prayer book in Mishkan Tefillah, and there's a very good reason for that. So if you read the bottom, the translation, let us now praise the sovereign of the universe and proclaim the greatness of the creator who has set us apart from the other families of the earth, giving us a destiny unique among nations. Okay, could rub some people the wrong way, but it is actually a nice sanitized translation. The actual words is who has not made us like the nations, Hagoyim, the Goyim, the non-Jews, and has and not placed us within the other families of the earth. That we are people set apart, that we're distinct and unique, and really, above others. And a lot of people don't like that sort of exclusion of other people, especially those who, like myself, come from an interfaith family. So instead, at TBT, we use this one, this alternative, which reads, let us now praise the sovereign of the universe and proclaim the greatness of the creator, whose unity we are charged to declare, whose realm it is our purpose to uphold. Therefore, we bow in awe and thanksgiving before the one who is sovereign over all, the holy and blessed one. So that one, I think, is a little bit more universal and feels more comfortable for those of us who, yes, feel like it is unique and special to be Jewish, and yet that just because it's unique and special to be Jewish doesn't mean that other people aren't also unique and special in their own ways. So Aleinu is one of those prayers that we rise for. And in some communities facing the ark, they'll open the ark. And I've been in both settings where they do and they don't. But at Aleinu, there is more bending and bowing. So keep an eye on me on when we do this. עלינו לשבח לדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגורר עלינו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we bend not at Ba'anachnu, even though a lot of people go Ba'anachnu Korim, it should be Ba'anachnu Korim Umishtachavim, because Korim literally means
that we bend, and mishtachavim means and we bow, and umodim and give thanks. So va'anachnu korim umishtachavim. So just a little insider tip on bending and bowing during the Elenu. Then we can sit. Don't actually, the V'nei Amar is actually a point where you could sit or stand. But it goes V'nei Amar v'haya Adonai lamelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. So finally, we end every service with Kadisha Tome, which is the Mourner's Kaddish, which speaks about not death, but the glory of God. All of the different, we have 5 actually different Kaddishes that are included, not in every service, but are included within the Jewish liturgical canon. And this particular one is, the words are very similar to all of the other ones. It really talks about the holiness of God. And some people don't really feel inclined to praise God when they're mourning the loss of a loved one. And yet, that's exactly why Kadisha Tome is at the end of every service, is we give thanks to God for the life of that person that we have lost. If we hadn't had the opportunity to know and love that person, we wouldn't be mourning them. So we give thanks to God for allowing them to be with us, even if it was only for a brief time. So on this Friday night, we as a community, I think of the most recent loss of Eve Bukowski and Robert Frankel. We also remember the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Miriam S. Adler, Joseph M. Ahrensberg, David Bernstein, Leah Bowes, Esther Burdey, Francis Capel, Samuel Darchovsky, Abraham Gerson, Florence Saunders Gordon, Susan Gottlieb, Barry Martin Holst, Elizabeth Hyde, Harriet Kodish, Reed Kushner, Laura Leonard, Don Lindenkugel, Mimi Lobzens, Robert Quinn, Howard Rosenman, Barbara Schneider, Benny Shapiro, Selma R. Silverman, Edward Small, Marilyn Sobel, Hannah Beth Springs Stern, Emmanuel Suskind, Hilda Basson, and Grace Williams. When we say our Mourner's Kaddish, it is traditional when a name is read and they're your loved one, you rise. But in the most traditional settings, you would rise and say the name yourself. You would say the name, and you might even say their relationship. My father, and the purpose of that is that it's so important for the community to know who is in mourning. Traditionally, Kadisha Tome is only recited by those who are directly in mourning, not by the entire congregation, so that it's very apparent who is mourning the loss of a loved one or saying Kaddish for a yahrzeit. But it's often really difficult to stand and say Kaddish on your own, especially if you are grieving. So one of the things that my Rabbi Joe Black, would always do at the end of a service is he would read the names, people would stand to be acknowledged as mourners, and then he would say,
And now we all stand in solidarity with those who are in mourning. And also to say Kaddish for those whom there is no one left to mourn. Just an acknowledgement that even though there are people saying Kaddish, there are some people who, for whatever reason, can no longer say Kaddish. And that we as a community are in mourning for every member lost. So wherever you are, we rise now for our Kaddish Yatom, our mourners Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chaychon uvyamachon uv'chayed echol beit Israel, ba'gala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei kudashah b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlam rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Israel, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Israel, v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen. Tefillah, our Amidah, with a blessing for peace. We end our service also often asking for peace as well. So, Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam. Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Shabbat shalom, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our Erev Shabbat 101 service. And please, if you have any questions or if I got something wrong, which I'm sure I did, please let me know. And have a wonderful, peaceful Shabbat and Shavua Tov, a good and blessed week ahead. Shabbat Shalom.